All right, so WandaVision episode 5. This one is sort of half the WandaVision we've seen before, where we see it set in presumably an 80s/90s sitcom. They're really not specifying on this one, although they use Family Ties with the theme song. They also reference Full House quite a bit, which was honestly a little bit of a 80s 90s phenomenon. They're sort of getting into early TGIF territory as well as getting into 80s stuff. I do like the theme song at the beginning and certain things, but they sort of get into that they're stuck in this a little bit more than they previously had. They're not just in a sitcom starring them using sitcom logic, sort of like an 80s sitcom logic, but is more, the show is more about the mystery and them being stuck in Westview and what's happening to all these people and so forth. We're seeing outside of it as well as inside. There's that great scene, of course, where she comes out and she's dealing with the army and things like that I do think work really well. In fact, I think the show works best when we're seeing the connections to the further Marvel universe that we have a connection to, and clearly the writing has a connection to. When we don't have that, we're existing in this kind of faux sitcom world. It doesn't seem to work as well, although I kind of like what it was doing a little bit more in this. There was more breaking in this. There was more of a breaking of reality. And I think actually that is one of the more interesting things about why they picked this period to have it break more, because I think the 80s and 90s sitcoms get into kind of a falsehood of the reality that was going on in the world that I don't think the Dick Van Dyke Show and the Brady Bunch Partridge Family really did, because the Dick Van Dyke Show was obviously based on Carl Reiner and his real life, if you didn't know, and it's trying to be based in a sense of reality, basically. It's not like, the most diverse, amazing reality, but it was based in a sense of reality. Same with the Brady Bunch is trying to show a blended family. The Partridge Family is trying to show a single mother. Those are very much things that were topical, kind of a sense of reality, not complete reality. When you get into the 80s and 90s stuff, it is kind of this false suburban lie almost. And it's kind of like why a lot of those things don't age 100% as well as those older sitcoms, at least in my mind, because they don't acknowledge, they sort of don't really talk about society. Like, culture really wasn't like that as much anymore. It was kind of just a strange, just kind of a strange sidestep, because it's not like talking about AIDS or crack or anything. It's sort of not acknowledging what's going on in the world. Kind of just suburban falsehood, especially written and directed by people who knew all these things were going on in the world, would probably make fun of the Leave It to Beaver stuff when they were younger, while then ended up making that stuff is a just bizarre kind of postmodern situation that they're in. So it almost makes more sense for Vision to question this, for the Catherine Hahn character to say, let's do it again, because it almost feels more like a play than the previous things that were early in TV. And I go, I guess this is sort of like what people like, because we have a radio show like this. This is the standard, and we are emulating the standard. And because that standard, in a sense, is made in knowingly fake way, I think it, in sort of a pop culture sense, actually makes more sense for them to sort of be breaking in that format rather than the previous ones, which it also might be because the writers and directors probably existed in that time and didn't exist in those other times, so the Dick Van Dyke Show feels like more of a connection to the past, whereas you actually know Full House was full of shit. But anyway, I like sort of what they're doing with it, but I like more of how we're getting connections to the overall Marvel stuff. There's far more of a connection to it. I think when we hear the stuff about her and Vision, I can connect to that. When we see the stuff of how this hits the other parts of Marvel Universe, I get that. But the sitcom stuff still feels odd. I still don't fully understand it. I'm very curious about the Catherine Hahn element to it. And I also wonder when Doctor Strange is going to show up. And I also wonder who Monica Rambeau texts. So I just, I have a lot of questions, but I'm much more into it. I think episode 3 was a huge mistake of the whole series because it slowed it down. Now it's like people are way more into it. It's way more stranger. It's way more getting into these issues, and it's kind of making you wonder about things a lot more than you previously did. It makes you wonder why exactly what's going on. It feels more of an interesting mystery box rather than a bullshit mystery box, but the whole sitcom thing screams of bullshit, and I don't think can really escape that. Do people want me to just talk about the ending and not shoot it later? I'm getting that. Let's do it. I guess we're not shooting it. That's fine. All right, so if you don't want to be spoiled, please tune out for a couple minutes or mute it. I'm about to spoil something, I guess. Basically, after their argument, he opens the door. When you see her brother, they kind of tease it, and you do not see Aaron Taylor Johnson. You see Evan Peters instead. So here's the thing. What's interesting about this is, one, I think Marvel picked the Quicksilver people like a lot more. But there's also the huge ramifications of this is that the MCU and the Fox universe, which we all knew they were going to, has finally crossed over in some regard. I thought they would do it with Ian McKellen. They've chosen to do it with Evan Peters. But if you think about it, between the two Quicksilvers, who has more memes? Who do we talk about more? They basically picked the better of the Quicksilvers, which is a great idea. Also, maybe Aaron Taylor Johnson didn't want to come back. That might have been another thing. I'm curious what they're going to do with this character. Obviously, like, this is not going to be a spoiler in a couple days, because when the next episode comes out, everyone's going to know. I'm curious what they're going to do with him, what they're going to say. Did he cross realities? Is this part of the multiverse thing? Are they going to bring people over from that? I don't know, but I think Marvel made a good decision because he is the better Quicksilver, 100%. Now, people said, like, maybe he could be a guy living in that town, and when this whole thing's over, he's just some dude and he's not Quicksilver at all. But I don't think they would do something that lame. I think it was a smart move, because in a way Marvel was able to get the Quicksilver that everyone loves, the best Quicksilver, and bring him over. And I think that could be a lot of fun. So I would actually not mind him in the Marvel universe. So you could bring someone over from that whole X-Men thing, and I don't think Hugh Jackman wants to, and I'm sure the rest don't. But if you could just bring him and someone who would say yes, I think that's actually a cool move. I thought I was really happy with it, and it was unexpected. It was surprising. I did see some of the spoilers, but I thought it was faked until I'm able to lie to myself. But it's curious what's going to happen. I fully expect a Doctor Strange thing happen towards the end of this season, but we'll see. But I thought it was it's definitely getting a lot better. I think the show is going through its growing pains, but I think it needs to figure out what it's saying with this, and that's like an overriding thing. It needs to explain the sitcom thing. It needs to figure out its whole deal still. All right.